Aloha, Dr. Russ Rosen here, and the goal of this module is to help you clarify what your BS or belief systems or contradictions are, and then what to do about them and how to fix them. It is truly one of the most powerful modules and can change your entire life if you'll pay close attention and take action. In fact, you'll be amazed how it will help your patients, your family, truly anyone that you want to help. So by now you should have been through Certainty 1 and 2 and possibly the 5 branches of philosophy by Pacha and Tempo. Angie and I work with a lot of doctors, and we find that we're always going back and forth between helping them implement procedures and helping them get clarity in their headspace. We're going to put it all together for you and dive very deep into old, outdated belief systems that may be keeping you from having the life and success of your dreams. By now, you're clear about exactly what it is that you want to do as a chiropractor, and it may sound something like, I want to help people get healthy, stay healthy, and have the best life possible. And yes, yours will be a little bit different depending upon your ideal patients, etc. Regardless, by now you should be pretty clear about what your intent is as you've been through Certainty 1 and 2. So we know what we're trying to accomplish, and the odds are we have some contradictions between our belief systems and our procedures. Okay, let's dive into how to recognize what our contradictions are and what we can do about them. Now, if you've been through the 5 branches of philosophy with Pacha and Tempo, you know that when there is a contradiction between your metaphysics, what I believe to be true, my belief system or basic premise, my epistemology, or how I know it's true, and my ethics, what I will do about it, how I will act or behave, what my procedures will be. If there is a contradiction, there will be destruction, and the level of destruction is proportional to the level of contradiction, says Ayn Rand. In our modules and our coaching, we're always dealing with 2 things. 1, headspace. That's the belief systems or what you believe to be true. And 2 is procedures. That's what strategies you will use to get from point A to point B. It's a lot like climbing up a ladder. Right hand goes up, and then left, and then right, and then left. And the truth is, your right hand cannot go more than a rung or 2 above your left hand, or you will fall. The same goes true for headspace and procedures. When Angie and I are coaching doctors, we are constantly cleaning up headspace and procedures. And the truth is, as one changes, the other one needs to change too. So here's the deal. If we have a faulty premise, if we believe something that is true that is not true, then everything else cannot work. So if you believe something to be true that is not true, everything else above it, your procedures cannot work. I can't end up with good and true behaviors with a faulty premise, or if my belief system is not based on truth. Make sense? Okay, let's dive into this. So 1, we have the metaphysics, which is what I believe to be true. Okay? I like to call these belief systems, or BS. These belief systems came from your mother, your father, your preacher, your teacher, TV, friends, internet, social media, etc. Now, Vishen Lakhiani of the book Code the Extraordinary Mind calls this the culturescape. I like that word a lot, culturescape. In his book, he discusses that there are 2 types of truths. 1, absolute truths, as in gravity, and 2, relative truths, what he calls rules or bullshit rules. So, an absolute truth, regardless of what you believe, gravity exists. I personally have 200 skydives. Regardless if you believe in gravity or not, when you and I jump out of the plane, we go down. If you don't believe in gravity and you and I jump out of a plane without a parachute, both of us are going to die. That is an absolute rule. And then, or an absolute truth. And then Vishen talks about relative truths or rules or bullshit rules. Again, I call these belief systems or BS. Now, opposed to the skydive story and gravity or an absolute truth, these truths can have two people or groups believing one thing while the other believes something completely different, yet they can both coexist and they can both live. As an example, there are lots of different religions, parenting styles, beliefs about how to practice chiropractic. In fact, most everything in your life is a relative truth versus an absolute truth. And therefore, it's critical to examine every belief system that we have. I'm going to repeat that. It is critical to examine every belief system that we have. Angie and I focus on this with our docs all the time. This is how I should market. This is not how I should market. This is the care plan I should use and why. I should offer long-term care plans. I should not offer plans. I should go pay per visit. The list goes on and on and on. And I promise you, you must examine these and make sure that your procedures are in line. Now, some of these belief systems support us, and they're based on truth. Some supported us before, but not so much now. Some never supported us. We need constant examination and scrutiny about these rules or premises or belief systems because everything else we do depends on these to be true for us. We need these three to be in line. What I believe to be true, how I know it is true, and what I do because it is true if we want power in our punch. Here's an example. I believe recommending a year of care to someone who has not received an adjustment yet from me is pushy, and I will be perceived as a sleazy salesperson. I know this because it feels wrong to me. I then try to recommend a year of care, and no one signs up. No matter how good the procedures are, it's not going to work. Make sense? Here's another one. I believe it's in people's best interest to sign up for a year of care. Even though they've not experienced my care, I don't in any way think that that is pushy or sleazy. I know this to be true because I've seen so many doctors do it successfully, and it's what I would want if I were a patient, a real plan to get where I want to get to. So I recommend a year of care, and people sign up, and of course, it works. Understand, when your metaphysics changes, or your belief system, then you need to change your epistemology and your ethics. In other words, when what I believe to be true changes, then how I know it to be true and how I behave, or what my procedures are, must change too. They must be in line for things to work. Otherwise, Ayn Rand kicks in, and we have what? Yes, we have destruction. Angie and I deal with docs that we coach all of the time. They say, give me a procedure. Tell me how to ask for referrals. Tell me how to do visit 1 or visit 2. But the truth is, until we clean up their belief systems, the procedures will most likely not work. We must learn, 1, how to recognize your incongruence, your contradictions, rules, BS, faulty premise, whatever it is you want to call it. We need to recognize those. And number 2, we need to know what to do about them once we find them. Okay, so how do we recognize them? Well, there are 2 different types that I want to talk about. One is conscious, or thinking and reasoning, and the other is subconscious. Conscious ones, here's an example. I want to run a health and wellness office, yet my sign says pain clinic. Easy. Take the word pain off your sign. Here's another. I ask people how their pain is doing every time, but I recognize I'm trying to run a health and wellness office. Easy. Use our daily interaction 4-step process. Once these conscious ones are pointed out, they're pretty easy to change. We have procedures in place for absolutely everything, and we can talk down ones that you may have in your office and when we speak. But here's what I really want to dive into in this module, is the subconscious contradictions. Esther Hicks of the Abraham tapes talks about our inner guidance system, which is based on our feelings or our gut feelings. When there's a contradiction between our BS and our behaviors, we will most likely feel it. Something feels bad or wrong, or there's a type of anxiousness or uneasiness. Pacientempo talks about emotions are an effect, not a cause. In transactional analysis, they talk about our thermostat. Now, if you've not listened to my interview with Tony and Angus, where we go into extreme detail about all of this, you're going to want to. Just go into the dive deep section of this module and listen to this interview with Tony and Angus. But in essence, here's how a thermostat works. If you set a thermostat at 68 degrees and it's too hot outside, your AC will kick in at, say, 70 degrees, and it will cool down to, say, 66 degrees, and then it will kick off. And then it will warm up again. And then at 70 degrees, it will kick back on and cool off, and then it will kick off, and then it will go up to about 70 degrees again, assuming it's hot outside. That is what we call our comfort zone. Now, we all have thermostat settings, aka faulty premise, BS, rules, in every area of our being and our life. How much intimacy I will allow myself, how much love, how many new patients, how much in my bank account, what is our PVA or retention, etc., etc., etc. It goes on. Every aspect of our life, we live within a certain comfort zone. You've heard the phrase, all growth happens outside of the comfort zone. And it does. They are all based on these belief systems, and most of these are based on BS or rules or faulty premises, but they are not based on truth. In the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, he goes into extreme detail about this thermostat that he calls upper and lower limits work. If you find this interesting, it is really worth the read. Okay, literally every area of our life has thermostats that keep us in a very specific range, and unless that thermostat is raised, we will stay within that very narrow range throughout our lives. Yes, we may do something to pop above it, as we may do an advertisement and bring in a ton of new patients, but if we don't raise our thermostat about how successful we can be or how many patients we can care for, etc., we will find our way back to that narrow range pretty quickly. We've all heard the story, if you take a 50-a-week guy and put him in a 100-a-day practice, you'll have a 50-a-week practice within 90 days. And trust me on this, if you don't raise your thermostat, this is true. You'll see that most people stay within a very specific range of all of the areas of their lives. Our subconscious believes those untruths, and it's crafty at whispering in our ear to get us to take action, to sabotage us to stay within that certain thermostat range. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As you learn this stuff, you'll see that you almost always end up causing the thing you were afraid of. I'm afraid they won't sign up for care. And because of that negative internal dialogue, that is what you create. But the good news is we can raise our thermostat and change our present and our future. As an example, I believe that money is bad. Can you see how that would affect your recommendations, your talks, your marketing? Anything that would lead you to serving more people? Yes, of course. I believe I should only have X number of new patients or retention, etc. And I promise you, for most of us, it's a very similar number throughout our careers. Unless we do something to raise the thermostat, which is our subconscious communicating by whispering to us, causing us to take action to keep us in that comfort zone, things will not change. This is how it works. You have a faulty premise that leads to negative internal dialogue or thoughts. Those thoughts lead to feelings. Those feelings lead to behaviors. The behaviors lead to present, and the present leads to our future. Here's an example. Subconsciously, I feel I'm not good enough, and they won't believe me, or they won't think I'm a real doctor, etc. I now have to do something, as in I have to give a report of findings or give a talk, and I know I'm not good enough, or they won't like me. and that feels bad. I feel stress, obviously. So, thoughts, I'm not good enough. And our subconscious whispers to us, you're not good enough. They see right through you. They think you're a fake, you're a phony, blah, blah, blah. Those thoughts lead to feelings. Your stomach pangs, your breathing shuts down, you get anxious. Therefore, how do I behave? I'm weak, I'm off center. I may get very passive, I may get very angry and aggressive, but clearly I'm not at my best. My present, the reported findings from my talk, sucked. And the future, well, I never hit my goals and I live up to being a failure. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behaviors, lead to present, lead to future. Trust me on this, gang. I've been studying this stuff for 35 years now. This is how it works. So how do we recognize that we have these subconscious contradictions in our belief systems? One thing you can do is what we call the 10-minute practice. You want to start to really listen to your internal dialogue. Go to the Dive Deep section of this module and get this article for a very detailed version of this discussion. And there's a couple other really good articles too. Also, if you listen to the Tony and Angus interview, we'll go into quite a bit of detail, but you definitely want to read this article. But in essence, in the 10-minute practice, you're going to sit down in a very quiet environment, turn off your phone, let everyone know to leave you alone for at least 10 minutes, and you'll just start to listen to your internal dialogue. Yep, that part of your brain that's always talking at you. For many people, it's hard to hear at the beginning. In fact, docs tell me all the time that after the first time or two of doing the 10-minute practice, they don't really have any internal dialogue. And I just ask them to humor me and do it for a few more days, and all of a sudden, they start to hear this onslaught of dialogue, and most of it is pretty nasty. We all have internal dialogue. For most of us, as you really start to listen to this dialogue, you will be shocked at the things that you're telling yourself all day long. So you sit down for 10 minutes with a pad of paper and you begin to write. Now, if you wrote versus typed until you were around 8 years old, you're better off writing versus typing. It accesses a different part of the brain where a lot of the emotions, etc., are stored. So you're going to write the exact opposite of what you hear your internal dialogue say. As in, you will hear, Russ is an idiot. I don't want to have to do this. And you will write, Russ is so smart. I love doing this. You will hear, what a waste of time. And you will write, this is such a valuable use of my time. Now, is this supposed to all of a sudden change those things? No, it's simply an exercise similar to sit-ups or push-ups. The article in the Dive Deeper section goes into much more detail, but this 10-minute practice will get you to begin to hear some of your internal dialogue that's keeping you within the comfort zone of your thermostats. You'll begin to hear the same scenarios over and over and over again. This guy screwed me over. That guy screwed me over. Everyone's screwing me over. No one cares about me. I have to do everything. I'm a failure. They don't believe me. They don't like me. Patients don't believe me. No one will sign up for care. This person in front of me can't afford it. And the list goes on and on and on. So the 10-minute practice will help you get much more clear about your internal dialogue that helps keep you within a range of your thermostat. Now, I'll explain much more about how that works in a moment. Okay, now, you've done the 10-minute practice. I want you to start to listen and experience how you feel. And by the way, my recommendation is that you don't just do the 10-minute practice once or twice. In the article, you'll see that this is for quite some time. My friend who taught me this, named Eric Sigmund, has really, truly one of the most amazing lives that I know. And I asked him how things were going once, and he just went on about how amazing things are. And he smiled at me and he said, that's what 38 years of doing the 10-minute practice every single day will do for you. Really powerful stuff. Okay, so done the 10-minute practice. I want you to start to listen and experience how you feel. Remember, thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behaviors. Okay, so when you're stressed, when you're telling yourself a lie, when you're telling yourself one of your internal dialogue BS statements, you will notice that your breathing shuts down. You may get a pang in your stomach, your jaw may clench. eventually there will be screaming in your head. Eventually that may turn into screaming and punching someone in the face. We want to notice this negative internal dialogue, these negative feelings, when they're more like a kitten versus waiting until they're like a lion. And trust me, if you're angry, if you're fuming, you've had a lot of negative internal dialogue. You may not have noticed it, but trust me, you've had it. If it doesn't feel good, it's most likely a contradiction. In other words, if it doesn't feel good, if you feel anxious, you're most likely lying to yourself. And I know, I get it, that sounds crazy, but I'll dive deeper into that in just a moment. So we want you to notice the feeling when it's a pang or a kitten and do something about it versus waiting until it's a lion and you've punched someone in the face, or someone's punched you in the face, or yet another patient has not started care. Does that make sense? Okay, how else do we recognize our BS? By examining your rules. Remember, there are absolute rules or truths like gravity, and the rest are really worth examining. Again, I can't recommend enough that you read the book Code, The Extraordinary Mind, if that kind of thing interests you. Again, this is something Angie and I spend tons of time when we're coaching our clients. Now that we can recognize our BS, or our rules, or our contradictions, what do we do about them? Well, let's talk about the cork that wants to float. I want you to imagine that you have 100 strings attached to pennies, and they are all attached to a cork from a wine bottle. The pennies are negative belief systems, or BS, or contradictions, or untruths, or neuroemotional complexes, or incongruencies, whatever you want to call them. Each negative belief system weighs down the cork. You put one on, you don't see much change. 2 or 3, maybe you see a little movement. By 100, it sinks. Step 1 is to recognize these belief systems, these BS. Step 2 is to let them go, or to get rid of them. As we do, as we let go of those strings with pennies, your cork floats again. Naturally, we let go of who we're not, and we become who we are. And gang, magic happens. Angie and I see this all the time when we start coaching doctors. We start to clear up their headspace. We get rid of their BS. We clean up their faulty premises, and like magic, new patients come out of the woodwork. We call it a God wink. So we've spent time so far in this audio talking about how to recognize the BS that we have. Now the question is, how do we let go of them? Now there are many different things we can do. The 2 that I will comment are 1, the book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Byronkatie is a lady, Byron Katie. And it is by far the most profound book and process that I've ever run across to help us find and clear up these BS contradictions by ourselves. It's fast, it's amazingly simple, and it is unbelievably powerful. Again, I've been studying this stuff for 35 years now. Very best stuff I've ever run across. Now, I cannot recommend enough that you read the book, but in general, there are a couple of basic tenets that she lives by that I too have adopted. The first is, I'm not going to argue with reality, because when I do, I lose. But I only lose 100% of the time. So, no fair arguing with reality. And the second is, if it doesn't feel good, it's probably a lie, and it needs to be examined. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but if you read the book, or if you're coaching with one of us, we can help you start to see how amazingly true that statement is. In fact, one of the biggest ways she helps us find our belief systems, our BS contradictions, is simply going by how we feel. If it doesn't feel good, you're probably lying to yourself. And it's way more depth than that than I can get to in this model, but I'm asking you to please trust me enough to listen to the rest of this, and then just get the book and read it. I have yet to refer anyone to read this book, and I'll bet I've referred over 200 people to read it now that have told me that they thought it was crap. So hopefully you won't be the first. Okay, so what's the basic formula of the work? You simply ask yourself 4 questions and do a turnaround at the end. The first question is it true? The next question, if you said no, if you said yes, it is true. The next question is it absolutely 100% true? From 10,000 foot perspective, from God's perspective, Is it true? The next question is, when you think about that thought, how do you feel? And when you feel that way, how do you behave? And the last question is, if you could drop the thought, which we know you can't, but if you could drop that thought, how would you feel? And then all you do is a turnaround. And the turnaround is really asking this question: is it at least as true or truer to say the opposite? And there's quite an art to this. You'll want to read the book, but we'll dive into a couple of examples in a minute. And if it's not true or truer to say the opposite, can you think of any reason that would lead to more joy and happiness to keep thinking this negative thought? Good question. Okay, now together with Byron Katie's The Work, I like to use EFT. There's tons of information on EFT out there. If you go to eft.mercola.com, there's a ton of great videos on this stuff. But it's, most of us have been exposed to this kind of tapping procedure. I personally see the two of these things, Byron Katie's work, and the EFT work really well together. Okay, are there other things? Yeah, there's tons of other things. There's neuro-emotional technique, or NET, by Scott Walker, lots of other things, but these are the two that I'm discussing in this module. So let's do an example of Byron Katie's The Work. To me, the single most dangerous faulty premise for chiropractors, and I know this sounds crazy, but hang in there with me, is everyone needs chiropractic care. Again, I get that sounds crazy. And I get it. If I were at a seminar, I could get lynched. And I get it's a wonderful war cry that leads doctors to having a huge why behind their how. I get it. But I'm just asking you to hang in there with me. If you believe that it's true that everyone needs chiropractic care, then regardless of how many people you see, how many goals you attain, how much money you make, this single premise causes more doctors to be unfulfilled than any other one that I've ever heard. And please believe me, I've heard it all. My worst day in practice, I saw the most people I'd ever seen. I was averaging about 120 people a day. On my birthday, my CA did a huge reactivation and asked people to come and celebrate my birthday with me by getting adjusted. I saw 179 people that day. Now again, it was the worst day of my professional life, because at the end, I was so tired and so exhausted, I realized that I'd never be a 200 per day kind of guy. And my belief system was that you're not a real chiropractor if you're not seeing at least 200 per day. And that was an offshoot of everyone needs chiropractic care. And because of this faulty premise, or one of its many offshoots, most doctors never do hit their goals because they are constantly sabotaging themselves. I'll give some examples in a moment. This faulty premise, everyone needs chiropractic care, leads to other faulty premises or offshoots. As in, if everyone needs chiropractic care, then everyone should sign up for care in my office. Everyone should sign up for lifetime care in my office. If they don't sign up for care, I failed them, and I feel bad. Everyone will do better under my care, or I can help everyone. Yeah, I get it. I get this story. But what if their body doesn't accept the adjustment? What if they went and they just keep doing things that make the adjustment not work? I mean, really, every single person under your care is going to get better, so you're that one person on the planet? Knock it off. You know that there are some people that simply don't come along under your care. Now, we could really dive into this one, but I don't have the time for it right now. We did it in Certainty 1, but this is a huge one. Here's another. If someone doesn't get good results, I obsess, and I can't even think of the many people who have gotten great results. Do you ever do that? Trust me, this is all part of this same BS nonsense. From the platform, we hear chiropractic always works. I can help everyone. Everyone will get better under my care. Therefore, I go back to my practice, but I recognize that some people aren't coming along. Some people aren't getting better. So one of two things have to be true. One, chiropractic is a lie, or I suck. Which one of those two belief systems will lead you towards tremendous success? Neither. Okay, so let's take this and we'll do the work. Everyone needs chiropractic care. Is that true? Yes. Most doctors would say yes, that's true. Is it absolutely true? Now, a lot of doctors would say, yes, it's absolutely true. And now I would ask, okay, prove it. Are most people under care? No. Okay, so it's not true. See, I'm not going to argue with reality. Until we've seen the paradox, we've not seen the truth. I know this sounds and feels wrong, but the truth will set you free. How do I feel when I believe everyone needs chiropractic care and then I see that most people aren't? I feel terrible. How do I feel when I believe everyone needs chiropractic care and then they come into my office and they don't start care? Or they do start care, but then they don't continue care? I feel like a failure. When I feel like a failure, how do I behave? Not in my center, not in my power, weak, aggressive, needy. Clearly, I'm not at my best. And this, my friends, leads to the self-fulfilling prophecy. Because I feel bad, because I feel weak, because I feel angry, I do not behave my best, and the odds are I'm going to blow it with my next patient. And they don't start care, and they don't stick around, and round we go. Remember, thoughts lead to feelings, lead to behaviors, lead to present, leads to future. Is it at least as true or truer to say that everyone does not need chiropractic care? Sure, how do I know? Because most people aren't under care. So once I get that truth, I can now install a new truth, a real truth that will raise my thermostat. How about this for more of an honest premise? Subluxated people who want to be as healthy as they can be and experience the best life possible need chiropractic care. Let me repeat that again. Subluxated people who want to be as healthy as they can be and experience the best life possible, they need chiropractic care. Is that true? Yes, that's true. Do you see how the game changes? Do you see how the pressure comes off of your shoulders? If you hear the word should or shouldn't, I'm asking you to examine it. They should do care. Where's the proof? They should be happy to pay. They should stay for a lifetime. I shouldn't feel bad if they don't sign up for care or stop care. I shouldn't feel bad if they don't sign up or stay. Why? Because I know what's best for them? Is that true? Dive deep. Do the 4 questions in the turnaround. I promise you it'll blow your mind. They should believe me. They should value their health. They should bring their family in. They should come to the healthcare talk. They should bring in their family and friends. I shouldn't want more money. I should or shouldn't give them lifestyle advice. I should or shouldn't be their friend. I should or shouldn't believe everything in the green books. I should or shouldn't care about my patients. I should or shouldn't care more about my patients than they do. I should or shouldn't make my fees very affordable. I should or shouldn't give people care regardless of their ability to pay. Oh my God, I feel like throwing up with that one. I should be passionate, but I don't want to sound like a salesman. It shouldn't bother me when people don't do what I tell them to do or stick to their schedule. I'm asking you to quit shoulding on yourselves. If you hear the word should or shouldn't, you must examine it in great detail. So hopefully you get the idea. Angie and I ask our coaching clients all the time to write out as many of these as they can, and then we dive into them. We help them examine them and find the truth. As soon as we start cleaning out these BS, brutal contradictions, you will be amazed at what happens. That's what I'm asking you to do, doctor. Spend the time to get extremely clear about what your BS and belief systems and contradictions and rules are and clean them up. Add very specific, congruent procedures, and you too will be amazed at what happens. If you're not coaching with Dr. Angie or myself at this time, please consider it. You can do a full coaching program with us where we dive into every aspect of you and your practice in all 5 systems, or you can do a la carte coaching where you just get on the phone with us and let us help you clear up your BS and your contradictions or whatever it is that you need to work with. I promise you 100%, if you really focus on this, if you find ways to find your BS and contradictions and remove them, then simply add congruent procedures, your life will change in ways that you cannot imagine. As always, much love and aloha. Bye, gang.